The big shift in my life really came from a sudden and tragic death of my biological father. When that happened, all of the stagnation, all of the density in my emotional body spewed out. I was just trying to suppress it as much as possible, creating these coping mechanisms that were very detrimental to my energy. Drinking all the time, doing drugs, trauma dumping to relieve that pain. But again, it was solidifying the story.
What exactly does remembering your sacredness really mean?
When you have these layers of protection, these defense mechanisms trying to run from your past, you tend to create these layers around your seed of light that blind you to what your soul is here to do. While I believe that therapy can be a great first step, I do now in the work that I do feel like it can almost be a little bit more detrimental. Those 8 months of walking through the dark night of my soul, I really felt like I just didn't want to be alive anymore. This was such a pivotal moment in my journey of actually realizing and choosing for myself that I really needed to heal.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Voices of New Earth podcast. My name is Nihal, and I'm super excited to be diving in this episode today with y'all. I'm joined today by a deeply inspiring woman, Chelsea Brianna, who is a trauma-informed EFT practitioner, an energetic healer, and an embodiment mentor on a mission to help women align, heal, and expand into their most empowered, authentic self. Through her work, she weaves together EFT, visualization, meditation, and breathwork to help her clients release stored emotions, reconnect with their energy, and rewrite the narrative of their lives. And in the past few weeks, I've had the honor of getting to know Chelsea on a much deeper level through the New Earth University and just on a personal level. And I'm very excited to dive into your story today, Chelsea. Thank you for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself. Let the audience know a little bit about the work that you do and what you're basically working on.
Awesome. Okay. Well, as you said, my name is Chelsea Brianna, and I'm a women's healing and embodiment mentor. I'm also a speaker and proudly a cycle breaker. And that is really the seed that has been growing in me for at least the last 5 years, if not longer. And I grew up in a very troubled childhood, as many who walk a similar path do. We have to go through that darkness to illuminate our own light inside. And that is very much my journey. And it's the one that I walk my clients through as well. Many women come to me with this inner knowing that they're made for more, that there is more to life than the density that they've carried for generations. And my purpose, my mission here on earth is to guide them into alchemizing that wounding, that subconscious density into embodied power, because we are not our story, but our story is the mud that allows the lotus to bloom. And my job here is to have women remember that, to help them to come back home to themselves and to their unique light within.
I love that. That is so beautiful. You know, I feel like oftentimes when we talk about coming back to yourself, it's about like remembrance. We say coming back to your sacredness. I would love to just kind of start there. Like, what exactly does remembering your sacredness really mean?
It really means coming home to feeling safe and held in your being, in your body. Because when you have these layers of protection, these defense mechanisms, these patterns and habits of overcorrection, like overachieving, trying to run from your past, trying to consciously not repeat it, you tend to create these layers around your seed of light that blind you to what your soul is here to do. And what I often see is, and this is what I experienced in my life as well, is I made it decades through my life in that mode. I was very much in my hyper masculine, where I was forcing, I was pushing, I was striving to create a life that was nothing like my childhood. And in that, I was following the path of success that society had conditioned me to believe I needed to follow. And it took about 2.5 decades, and unfortunately getting married and then divorced for me to realize, oh my goodness, I have been living my life in the script of someone else. Like, I am not living my life from my heart. I don't feel like myself. I don't feel like I am doing what I'm meant to do here on earth. And I believe that is really the beginning of coming home to that sacredness, is opening your eyes and awakening to the way that you're conditioning your emotional blueprint has, created this like striving, forcing energy in your life that isn't really serving you and isn't serving the medicine you're here to share and to create, ripples in the collective with. And yeah, that I think that's a good synopsis of what I think that coming home to that is.
I love that. So when you work with your clients who have, let's say, been through a lot of trauma, and I know that when we spoke last, we really dove into your story and some of the key moments of your life. I'm curious if you could shed some light on when you feel like you've had a really tough story, when you've really been through a lot of pain and you can't really see that light of sacredness, within you. How do you kind of begin to transmute that pain? Where does that journey begin?
Mm. Hmm. I feel like this is an interesting question because what I'm noticing is that the stigma has lifted around therapy. And so many people want to start there and do start there. They go to a therapist, they start picking apart their story, they start picking apart the layers of what, is still stirring inside, that density and that darkness inside. And while I believe that therapy can be a great first step, I do now in the work that I do feel like it can almost be a little bit more detrimental because there is a solidifying of the energy that comes from repeating your story. You are solidifying the neural networks that are actually attached to the story versus shifting the energy. So the work that I do is very much energy work. I am working with energetics when I'm working with the subconscious and the nervous system. And through EFT, emotional freedom technique, we are actually shifting the density.
Wow.
Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. It can only be shifted. And so in the process of reflecting on your past and telling the story over and over, it might feel really good. Like I've had been through years and years and years of therapy, and the crying sessions were amazing. Like it felt great, right? Because
Yeah.
I had all this pent up emotion that needed some kind of outlet. So that felt really good. But nothing really changed. Like the root of that density stayed the same, if not became deeper ingrained in my being. And so through the modalities that I use and through the work that I do, it's really about that creating safety first in the nervous system. Because if you don't have safety in the nervous system, if you are redlining your window of tolerance and always feeling like that the next shoe is going to drop or something is about to chase you, or you're going to have to fight or flight or fawn or freeze, if you're always at the precipice of that, your body and your emotional body, when we're talking about the subtle energy bodies, will not allow you to actually get to the root of that energy. So it will not allow you to really dive into that energy to be able to shift it. So it all starts with the alignment and creating safety in the body so that you actually can come into that place of starting to feel into the emotions, not just intellectualizing them like you do in talk therapy, where we're just connecting the dots, right? And it feels good. We feel like, okay, maybe if I just understand it more from a conscious perspective, that I will get past it, that I can move beyond it. But our world, our lives are only 5% conscious mind. They are 95% subconscious. And so the stories live in the subconscious. And the more that you're solidifying those neural pathways in your subconscious, the less the conscious mind can do anything about it. Like you're going to be stuck in that pattern. And maybe you change a habit, maybe you change the choices that you're making a bit, but you're most likely, if you're in this kind of situation, most likely going to find that pattern coming up again, just in a different person, in a different town, in a different job. Like the underlying pattern lives in your subconscious. And it isn't until we create that safety in the nervous system that we can actually start to unravel those neural pathways in the subconscious and rewrite them in a way that actually serves you and who you are at your core.
Mm. That's beautiful. I know with the work that you do, you really help with embodiment practices. You talk a lot about embodied work, with even with EFT, with visualization. You're talking about like a lot of the work stems into the subconscious mind as well. So how does that begin? Like when we are looking to, you mentioned something really beautiful. Like energy cannot be created or destroyed. It simply shifts. So with embodied practices, how do you begin the journey of transmuting that pain?
So embodiment has so many definitions, especially in the self-development, self-actualization world. And it's been a bit of a poke in my side when I watch embodiment mentors speak to this idea that it's just being in the body, because that makes it sound really simple, but it also is kind of this perpetuating siloing of our energy. We have 5 subtle energy bodies, and the first 3 are the physical, the emotional, and the mental. And what I am noticing a lot in my own experience of processing this and in what I hear from my clients is that they try so hard, but only in one area of their energy. So with therapy, talk therapy, they're really trying hard in the mental space. With embodiment, as that definition I just gave, they're really trying hard in the physical space. But the emotions live in their own body, and that body truly needs to be focused on, not only focused on, but being able to distribute the energy and see how it has this beautiful symbiosis with your other subtle energy bodies. And I am now in this position where I get to redefine what embodiment is for my clients. And from my perspective in my work, that embodiment truly is that symbiosis. It is coming back into the body, but also being able to work with the energies all throughout the subtle energy bodies. So your entire energetic field. And this has been a big shift in the way that they perceive themselves. It's almost like a guide, like a manual to their energy, because they realize, oh, this energy that I'm noticing right now, this is in my emotional body, and it kind of gives them this navigation of where they're feeling this energy. And then the practices that I give them are integration practices that allow them to really get into each of those bodies and then bridge them together and have that healing be very holistic and symbiotic.
Beautiful. You mentioned 5 different type of energy bodies. Could you shed some more light on that? Like, what are these 5 and what do they really mean?
Yeah, and there are so many fields of thought here when it comes to the energy bodies, and I focus on these 5 because from my perspective they are the core, the foundational energy bodies. So the physical, meaning the body, like the actual, matter, our bones, our skin, our blood, our cells. The emotional body, which is also called the vital body. And in the emotional body, that is where the blueprint lives from your childhood. So that is where the blueprint is in your subconscious, in your nervous system. And that's also where we can access the levels of consciousness that come through from divine intelligence in the chakra system. So those 3, you can think of them kind of like a wiring harness on a vehicle. That is the energy, the electricity that runs through our body and really determines how we are functioning physically, mentally, and spiritually in our lives. And then the third is the mental body, and that's the conscious thought. And we as a society tend to put so much weight into the mental body. And so many people are walking around with trying to live just from here, right? Like they're just trying to figure it out. They're just trying to use their mental energy to move through the world and to create things. And that creates a really interesting disconnect, in your energy, because the energy is flowing throughout all of these bodies cohesively. But when you are only focusing on the mental body, then your physical body tends to have issues, your emotional body tends to have issues, and this is where we see a lot of chronic illness and chronic pain in the body is specifically because of that. We have so much stagnant energy in these lower two subtle energy bodies. The fourth is what's known as the supramental body. And in the supramental body, it's all about your archetype energetic blueprint. So this is where we can dive into astrology, gene keys, human design. We can dive into these the pattern awareness of how you were created to exchange with energy in your life and move through life. And then the fifth is the bliss body. And the bliss body is what we're aiming for. That bliss body is that full coherence within your energy bodies that allows you to move through in this present moment without having that energy either being siloed or being dysregulated in any of those bodies, but actually flowing through all of them and having right relationship with all of them.
That's beautiful. I wanna kind of dive in a little bit into your story. And when you mentioned that this bliss body is something that we are trying to, strive towards. I'm curious, have you in your life felt like a connection to all five of these different bodies and like this bliss body that you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's speak to my story a little bit first. Like the big kind of shift in my life really came from a sudden and tragic death of my biological father. And when that happened, all of the stagnation, all of the density in my emotional body spewed out. Like it was like a volcano. There was no stopping it. And I also did not have the resources. I didn't have the inner awareness or the tools to move through it in a productive way. And so instead, I was just trying to suppress it as much as possible. I mean, imagine trying to take, molten hot lava and shove it back into the volcano. Like it doesn't work, right? And that's what I tried to do for about 8 months. And in doing that, I was creating these coping mechanisms that were very detrimental to my energy. I was drinking all the time. I was doing drugs. I was trauma dumping, sober and inebriated. I was doing so much to relieve that pain. But again, it was solidifying the story. It was me just going over and over all of these traumas I had been through and not actually paying attention to the root of it, that density that lived within my emotional body. And it wasn't until I was mid blackout on 4th of July and I came to and I heard a voice. I was sitting on this huge boulder in the middle of a big creek, and I was sitting there and I came to and I heard this voice that you need to go. You need to heal. And I was like,
Wow.
"Oh goodness, what what is that?" Well, I had been offered a job at the beginning of that year in a rural town in Texas in the hill country. And for months and months, I could not make a decision. I wanted someone else outside of me to make a decision. I wanted my partner to either give in and say he would move to Texas with me. I wanted, my friends to tell me that I had to go, that was going to be the best opportunity for me, but no one was giving me that permission, right? And of course, this is the way that the universe works, is that I didn't need that external validation. I needed to give myself the permission. I needed to choose
Mm.
myself. And that was a pivotal moment for me, was hearing this voice, because many times in my life I had heard this voice before. And I truly believe that's the voice of my higher self. I believe that that is my highest expression of my soul, who is trying to basically say, "Hey, get your shit together. we need to take care of ourselves." And so that was a pivotal moment. And less than 2 weeks later, I was packing my bags and saying goodbye to my partner and drove 1,700 miles across the country to go live by myself in this tiny little town. And it was during, the pandemic, and so I couldn't really make friends. I didn't know anyone in the area, and it was literally the perfect recipe for me to have to look at myself in the mirror and be very, very honest with myself. And in that moment, I drove 1,700 miles. I got to my little 1-bedroom studio apartment, this tiny, tiny room where I literally could put my hands on the ceiling. I mean, it was like the tiniest little place. And I ended up calling it my cocoon. But I got there and I just dropped to my knees and I sobbed. And I cried and I cried and I cried. And it wasn't necessarily sadness, but it was like this final coming to moment of I chose myself. Like I chose my healing. Like this was such a pivotal moment in my journey of actually realizing and choosing for myself that I really needed to heal.
Wow. Just got goosebumps listening to that because I feel like so many of us also struggle to do what we need to do for ourselves. We're always seeking for permission, especially with the roles and responsibilities that we play in our lives or our family dynamics. We feel like we need to ask somebody or we have something to do here. And I know that like what you kind of went through also was a very painful period, and losing your father is, I can't imagine. But to give yourself that permission also, I think, is fundamental to like really just connecting deeper to yourself and connecting to your higher self.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It was the game changer. Like it literally changed everything. And I ended up, being in that place for about 3 months, and that was the beginning of my healing journey. That was me coming back into coherence with myself. I realized I needed to deeply nourish my body. I needed to actually pay attention and start to unravel the emotions that were coming up, and that I needed to get my mind right too, because I had those 8 months of walking through the dark night of my soul. I would wake up in tears more times than I could count. I was literally crying in my sleep. Like my energy was just so, so dense, and I was ignoring it. I just kept trying to ignore it. And my body was like, like, we can't. We need some kind of release. And yeah, I would wake up crying. My mantra became, I don't belong here. And internally, I really felt like I just didn't want to be alive anymore. And that was really my wake up call, because I'm not here to be in pain. And that's what I tell my clients as well. You're not here to be in pain. You're not here to carry the density. You're here to alchemize it. Many of the women I work with, they are cycle breakers. They know this. That's why they're seeking support. That's why they're seeking guidance on their journey. They know that they are strong enough to actually shift the narrative. And it all starts within. It all starts within. It starts with that radical accountability of how you are nourishing yourself and how you are in alignment or in misalignment in your life. Moving to Texas gave me the space. It gave me the void, the white space, to actually be able to process where I was in extreme misalignment in the way that I was treating my body, in the way that my emotions were being just suppressed so much, and in the way that I was thinking about everything. I definitely was in just such a dark, depressive place. And those 3 months brought me back to life. They totally did. It was my cocoon. It just tore me down to my foundation and allowed me to rebuild from that place of alignment. And when I came home 3 months later, I truly was a different person. And so many people in my life say that to me to this day. Like, you
Yeah.
came back a completely different person. And I believe that's because I was in such coherence that I actually was able to be in my bliss body. I was very much in the moment, very much in the presence.
Hmm.
I had so much self-trust because I had chosen myself, because I had chosen my healing, and I showed up for myself every day for those 3 months. And that created such a strong bond and right relationship internally that it was evident externally that I felt whole. I remembered my
Wow.
wholeness.
That's so powerful. So powerful. I'm curious. I know that this journey, you mentioned that it was like a cocoon for you and you spent these 3 months here and you allowed yourself, you gave yourself permission to truly just feel everything you're feeling, giving yourself to, just reconnect, be present, be, with yourself, to truly tap into your voice and into your body and feel all the things that you're feeling. But what do you think was like the turning point in that 3 month period where you felt like, okay, now I feel like I'm ready to go back, like I feel different. I've moved through this, where was that kind of like that turning point for you?
It was just a moment where I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I just, I'm not sure how to explain that, but it was, I had felt like I had laid such a foundation for myself that coming back to the environment that I was in when I was in such extreme dysregulation wasn't a threat anymore. Like that I had created such a strong footing for myself that I knew that I was dedicated to that more than I was any of the external, you know, habits or situations. And proof of that was when I came back and everything that was misaligned fell away. The toxic friendships fell away without force, It was just like this beautiful beautiful separation via resonance. It's like I love the analogy of the trains that have the magnets on them, if they are not meant to be in that resonance, like you cannot, no matter how much you try to force, you can't get those magnets to actually stay together, They're always going to push apart. And it was that polarity that was happening. I was so in my own energy. I was so coherent in my field that anything that was misaligned couldn't attach to me. Just absolutely couldn't. And and that was, yeah, that was absolutely beautiful to witness, and thank goodness, because I don't really like confrontation either.
Yeah.
So it was nice that, it was just impossible to attach to those things that were draining my energy before.
With living in alignment today, what are some of the things that, you feel like you have completely let go of and you don't really, or do you feel like you fall back into some of your older patterns ever? Or do you feel like it is a completely like a new version of yourself?
I think once in a while, yeah, once in a while I'll feel the internal like emotion of something. Like whether that is like seeking validation or seeking permission. It's not very often these days. Like the strength that I have in my trust with myself is just it's beyond anywhere that it was in my past. But as far as the habits, absolutely not. I've been completely sober for 3 years, and I, previous to that, when I returned, barely drank. I just didn't. It wasn't part of who I wanted to be anymore. And every time that I did have, a beer or something, it just didn't feel right. Like I could feel the shift in my energy, and it's that awareness. The awareness is really the first step, is being able to be aware of your energy and how your energy is shifting, especially with external substances. And that was just so obvious to me. It was so obvious to me that this is no longer part of my journey. And it really, yeah, nowadays it doesn't take any willpower at all. And it's like I can hang with people who want to do that, who want to have, some alcohol, and I have no inkling to drink. That's just not part of me anymore in my, yeah, my, I don't know, being.
I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper into your story. I mean, you could maybe share us a little bit about your journey, kind of like where it began and what your life kind of looked like growing up.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh I think I want to remove the word kind of. It was very traumatic. It was very, very traumatic. And it's nothing now as a mother, it's nothing that I ever would want my child to go through. And it's it's funny, I will share it, but I also was thinking this the other day, thinking about this podcast, and it feels so removed from who I am now. It feels so far away. It's not alive in my body anymore, which I'm just very proud of myself for, because that took a lot of intention and a lot of inner work. But yeah, so I was born to my mother and my father, and my mother decided to leave pretty soon after my birth. She was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, and that was kind of her exit plan, I guess. And so I really connected deeply with my father because he was my sole caretaker. He was the one that was providing nourishment and protection, and he was there. And that's literally what we are biologically wired to do at that age, is to connect with our caretakers. Yeah, that was, I had a really deep connection with him. And then he was dating someone and ended up marrying her. And my stepmother was so abusive in every way that you could think. Physically abusive, emotionally abusive, mentally abusive. She brought in others who were sexually abusive to me. And so those first years of my life, that emotional blueprint was, life is unsafe, that people are unsafe, especially women are unsafe, and that I had to constantly be on alert in order to survive. So I had a nervous system that was just very, very hypervigilant and always waiting for the threat to come around the corner. And it wasn't until I was about, I believe I was about 12 or 13, that they had severe substance abuse issues. My father was an alcoholic, a raging alcoholic, and him and my stepmom had drug issues as well. And we came home one day from school, and there was a padlock on our family home, and we had been evicted, and they had repossessed the house, and we ended up living in the family vehicle for a couple weeks, and then we went into an apartment. I had two younger siblings at the time as well. So there were four of us living in an apartment together, and the abuse continued. And honestly, it felt like it grew because I was connected to my father, who
Yeah.
was who my stepmother was blaming for the whole thing. And so there was this just constant barrage of, yeah, all abuse possible. And I got home one day from school and I heard that voice. That was the first time that had heard that voice. All it said was, run.
Mm.
You need to run. And I took the school bag on my back and I ran away. And
Wow. How old were you?
I believe I was 13 at that
Oh
point.
my God, that's crazy.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And so I ran away, and I ended up living where my dad was living, which he was living with his sister, my aunt. And during that time, the abuse just continued. I remember sitting in the room that we shared and hearing the voicemails that my stepmom was leaving, and it was literally just the shrill yells and all the curse words and name calling possible. And I was that little bee that had ruined her life, and it was just, she didn't want to take any accountability for her life or her participation in the situation that she was in. And that was a big eye opener for me, was just like, why is she blaming a child for what the situation that she's in? Like it was not my fault whatsoever. And so, yeah, on we went, and I ended up becoming a ward of the state because my father could not take care of me. He couldn't take care of himself. He was just in shambles. His alcoholism had just completely ruined him. And I ended up becoming a ward of the state of California and then moved into the foster care system. And before I was officially in the foster care system, a family from the school that I went to asked if I could come stay with them. And my father said yes. And I went to stay with them. And it was wonderful. It was a normal family, whatever normal is, but it was a
Yeah.
family without abuse, which is what I was feeling was normal at the time. Was I didn't have to worry about being hit or worried about, being screamed at or any of that kind of abuse. And so I actually ended up asking if they could be my foster parents, and they wanted to do it. They completely were on board with that. And so they took guardianship papers to my father, and he signed over legal guardianship of me, and the state signed over guardianship of me. And I ended up, yeah, with this beautiful family who I definitely feel like they're my guardian angels. They saw that I really needed love, and they actually, what's really interesting is that they, prior to having children, were actually parents in a almost like a foster care home. It was a home for girls who had survived a lot of trauma. So they already had like this education and this knowledge of what was about to happen, because what happened was a lot of acting out. There was a lot of me trying to understand myself, like understand, what I had been through, and also the teenage years, especially, as a girl, trying to fit in, trying to figure out like who am I? And thank goodness they had that past and that experience, because they were able to hold such a like safe, secure home environment for me despite what was going on internally. And yeah, that was a big turning point in my life for sure. And yeah, from there, it was a lot of overachieving. It was a lot of me trying not to be my parents, and I didn't look back after I became the foster kid. I decided like I was going to make this life different. I was going to make a life for myself, and I wasn't going to worry about any of them. I didn't want to save them or anything. I didn't want to have any kind of connection with them. And I really had put a lot of energy into becoming what I thought was successful. And
Uh-huh.
that included being, the first in my family to go to college, to get a degree, the first in my family to move abroad, the first in my family to get a corporate job, a big job out of college, straight out of college, and then I got married as well right around that time. And I thought I was checking all the boxes. I thought that's what, if I wanted to have that successful life, that's what I was supposed to do. And in that plan, of course, the universe had something else to say, and part of that was the embodiment, was coming back into my coherence. I started doing a lot of meditation around this time because I was starting to suffer from burnout in my corporate job.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, how do I relax my system? How do I, come back to myself? And so I started to meditate quite a bit, and I started doing yoga. And as anyone listening knows, when you start to meditate and you start to take time with yourself, you start to hear things like, whose life am I actually living?
Mm.
And that that just blew the whole thing wide open. And that's when I ended up getting divorced and going out on my own journey to figure out who I was.
Wow. I can't imagine just everything you've been through. It's a lot, but to see how you've moved through it and really transmute that pain into power today, and being a catalyst for so many people, I think it's powerful. It's very beautiful, and yeah, I'm very inspired. So thank you for sharing, all of that. And I would love to ask you, I know it's a very like personal question, but do you feel like today when you kind of look back, do you feel like you have been able to really forgive your father and move through all that you experienced?
Yeah. Yeah, forgiveness was a big part of it. And this happened in Texas when I was really starting to dive into the emotions that were still residing in my body, and resentment was a huge one. It was a huge one because I resented not only my abusers, not only the people who were there, but the people who weren't. So I really had this, yeah, I had this density toward all relationship in my life. And yeah, there was a big exhale that came with forgiving, and not necessarily forgiving him or forgiving my stepmother, but forgiving myself for carrying that density for so long. Because there's an interesting that happens with the energy of resentment. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Like you're
Mm,
crippling yourself with that
yeah.
density. And so the forgiveness was really, I mean, it really was inward. I forgive myself for holding on to this pain for so long. And
Wow.
in that forgiveness, I had this big zoom out moment where I realized everything that had happened, all of the trauma, all of the abuse that had happened was generational trauma moving through both of those family lines. Well, all three, including my biological mom.
Mhm.
And watching, the behavior and the patterns that my father was expressing, knowing that the root of that was actually a deep suppression of his own pain and density. Like I started to see that it wasn't that he was doing these things to hurt me or to hurt other people around him. He was doing them because he didn't have the resources or the strength to face his own density. And same with my stepmother. I learned that she had actually lived a life very similar to the life that she had put on me. And realizing that, I looked back and said, oh, this is because she wasn't able to alchemize the energy in her life. She didn't have the resources, she didn't have the support to actually move through all of the abuse she went through. So instead of being able to move through it or to be aware of it, she projected all of that pain onto the next generation. And same with my biological mom. She was abandoned by her mother, and her mother was abandoned by her mother. So that pain moved through that maternal line. And it wasn't until I was able to forgive myself and zoom out that I realized I'm forgiving myself because this ends with me. I
Mm.
am not going to move this on to another generation. I'm not going to carry this pain with me. I'm not going to suppress it until it becomes these really dark shadows that, loom over my life and my family's life. And I'm so thankful that I was able to do this work, that I chose myself and chose my healing before I had my son. Because now I look at my son and I realize exactly why I did it. Like I do not want to inflict that pain onto my son because I'm unable to deal with my own, Like
Yeah.
that's super important. And zooming out even more, this is how I believe that we heal the planet. I believe this is how we heal humanity is by coming into right relationship internally. Like all
Mhm.
of the work is inside. And by doing the inner work, then we come into right relationship with everything external, the people in our lives, the way we live our lives, the earth, like everything begins to mirror the internal coherence.
So beautiful. I think what you said, right now is so profound because, oftentimes we live with the pain and the trauma that has been inflicted upon us. And then with just the system of this world that we live in, it's like we tend to just keep on disconnecting ourselves from truly feeling that pain. We keep numbing ourselves. We look for external ways to like move through it, to work with that void and just to keep moving. But I feel like the real work, and when we talk about like this is what it looks like to create a new earth, is to truly be able to feel all of it. Because only when we start to feel all of it can we start healing. And only when we start healing can we then step into becoming a better person. And then when we become a better person, we can create the new earth that we're trying to build. And
Absolutely.
it starts with feeling, and that is the work that you do. I'm curious when you started your journey with the work that you do today, what was that like? Like when did you start studying EFT and trauma informed practices, and how did you start your journey there?
EFT came into my life really randomly, and it actually started with this idea of financial abundance, and EFT being a way to reprogram the subconscious beliefs that keep you from that abundance. And so that's really where I initially had a first brush with EFT, and I set it down after that. And then I went through this dark night of the soul. And as I was healing, as I was coming into relation with those emotions, it hit me that I had actually, had this brush with EFT and that EFT could potentially help me. EFT has such broad effects. Like you can, especially because it's regulating the nervous system, but it's also tapping into the subconscious. So with our subconscious running 95% of our lives, so many things that people struggle for and strive for are actually rooted in beliefs in the subconscious, and polarized by beliefs in the subconscious. And so many people, many self-development coaches and mentors actually use EFT to manifest, to manifest the dream life, to manifest the wealth, etc., manifest the love. Um, but I just had this intuitive knowing that we can actually create this shift in our neural pathways using EFT because, like I mentioned earlier, we need safety in the nervous system before we can even tap into those emotions and those neural pathways. And EFT does that in one fell swoop. So it regulates the nervous system so that you actually feel safe enough to access the neural pathways in your subconscious. And then you can actually utilize EFT to change the narrative, to rewrite the script of those neural pathways. And yeah, I do this personalized for all of my private mentorship clients. And then I also do group sessions in Kindred Cocoon, which is my monthly members group.
Uh-huh.
And I've seen amazing transformation. And the biggest part of this I want to speak to is that when you say feeling, like, can we actually come into this place where we can really feel what's happening inside? So many people run from that because they believe it's going to be painful.
Yeah.
And it does not need to be painful. Like
Uh,
this is the message. If you hear one message in in this podcast, I want you to hear this. Healing does not have to be painful. Feeling does not have to be painful. And it's a conditioning that we've grown up with, that emotions are pain. And part of that, I believe, is that especially in Western society, we have this mentality that when kids are hurt or when they're crying, we immediately want to say, it's okay, stop crying, and we tend to just void their pain. And so I think that's really where that baseline belief of feeling and healing needs to be painful, is because we avoid it so much in childhood. We avoid it so much, like, from this, again, the parents having this idea that, regulation is being calm. Like, regulation is
yeah.
not being calm. Regulation is not like stop crying, right? Like, when I hear parents say that, when I hear them say, like, oh, you just need to regulate, I'm like, well, actually, let's read between the lines here. What you're saying is you don't have the capacity to hold them in this moment where they really need to express their
Wow.
emotion, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, that's also a big part of my work with, especially with mothers, is being able to widen their awareness to see that within themselves, but also with the way that they parent and interact with their children. Because the way that we parent ourselves, because that's really what this work is reparenting. Can we hold ourselves in those moments where we're feeling? Can we
Uh-huh.
be with it? When we realize that emotions are energy in motion and that they are not going to last forever, we can actually sit with it. We can witness it. We can name it. And in that awareness and in that recognition and acceptance of it, then it starts to shift. But if we continue to slam the brakes and try to tell ourselves, oh, it's okay, don't cry, regulate yourself, then we're just perpetuating the emotion. We're not allowing it to move. And that's where the stagnancy starts to happen. And when the stagnancy gets overwhelming in the emotional body, we have outbursts, we have dysregulated moments, we get triggered, and then the reaction is just like nothing like we expected before, we volcano. And if we continue to suppress that and have that stagnant energy, that actually becomes dysregulation in the physical body. And that's where
Uh-huh.
we see so much chronic pain and disease and inflammation. It's energy that you haven't allowed to move. And this I guess it's kind of a polymath perspective, right? Like,
Yeah.
everything is connected. Everything is connected. And this is the specialty that I like to bring to my clients, is that I see it all. Like, I see the forest for the trees,
Uh-huh.
we can zoom out and zoom in, zoom out and zoom in. It's not just siloed in this one thing. It's not just your relationship with your loved one. It's actually your relationship with yourself. It's your relationship with your parents. It's your relationship with generations that have suppressed, emotions. And yeah, that's really what I speak to with this coherence too, is that there are kinks throughout many energy bodies,
Uh-huh.
and bringing more awareness and white space to how you perceive the kink that's happening in your life, zooming out and seeing like it's not just about you, that there are many layers to this. That's what helps my clients the most. And that's what they can take into and feel supported and resourced in their day to day, is watching someone who gets triggered and has this big response and go, okay, it's not about me, actually. It's about
Yeah.
their internal
The inner
state,
journey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of one of the four agreements. Don't take anything personally.
Mhm.
Nothing is ever personal. And I think that is like one of the most fundamental things that we can, start to live our life by, is not to take anything personally and not to victimize ourselves, because everything that we see and experience is just, I mean, it's the other person's reality that they're projecting.
Right. Right.
Yeah. You talk a lot about, bringing in this inner coherence and how the inner coherence results in outer harmony. Can you tell us a little bit more about how do you actually bring in your younger self, your present self, and your future self into an inner alignment?
Yeah. So this is what I like to call the Holy Trinity. The Holy Trinity is not, some energies or deities outside of us. It really is internal. And this is a blending of timelines, right? It's the energies without time or space restriction. And being able to come into alignment in the present self is the first step. So that alignment in your subtle energy bodies, where you are really nourishing and respecting yourself and in right relationship with right here, right now, in your body, your emotions, and your mental space. And from that alignment, then we can tap into the inner child and that emotional blueprint of your subconscious and your nervous system. Your emotional blueprint is laid from in the womb to 7 years old. And in that time, a lot happens that it's imprinted in your subconscious, and you might not have any conscious memory of it, right? Like, it's very hard to actually recollect these memories that have run the show for so long. And so through this alignment of your present self, you can get in touch with your inner child. And instead of trying to recollect these memories, you just become present to your inner child. You just become present to what they need to, they have something that they need you to hear, need to see. They want to be held. They want to be respected. And they have trepidation, usually, to being held because of that emotional blueprint. And so being able to actually align and then heal the inner child, that is pivotal. And from that point, when you're in coherence with your present self and your inner child, you've reparented your inner child, and you respect the relationship you have with your inner child, so that you keep coming back and nourishing that. It's not like a one and done thing. It's like a new way of inner standing. You know that there's an inner child in there that needs to be heard, that needs to be seen in every moment. And so you can come back to that place where you check in and you affirm and you give that unconditional love to your inner child. Because when you don't, it's going to run from that emotional blueprint, it's going to run the show, whether you like it or not, whether you're aware of it or not. So it feels much better from experience. I will tell you, it feels much
Yeah,
better when you are in that relationship with your inner child. And once
absolutely.
you have her on board or him on board, then you can come into that relationship with your higher self, which is what I like to describe as your fullest expression of your soul's mission, of your
Uh,
essence here in this lifetime, in this body. And I truly believe that all of us have a seed of light, a very unique seed of light that is your unique energetic fingerprint in this collective essence that we have right now. And that seed of light is how you are meant to serve, how you are meant to be part of the collective. I really truly believe that we all have something that we are meant to participate with. I don't think we're supposed to just sit back and accept everything as it is. I think we have very specific gifts that we were brought here to bring online and then to share with others. And from the coherence of the now self, the inner child, and then the higher self, that is the bliss state. Like that coherence is where you actually feel like you have there's no thinking, there's no trying to figure it out. You have this unlimited like resource, this unlimited guide inside that says yes or no. Like
Yeah.
if you want to do something, like you just ask the oracle within, and that higher self will tell you. And it really takes that alignment and presence in the now to be able to hear. And it really, really takes that parenting, that relationship with your inner child to be able to hear clearly. Because if
Uh-huh.
you don't have that relationship, if you haven't done the healing work with your emotional blueprint, you're always going to hear through a filter. You're
Uh-huh.
always going to hear through those limiting beliefs and the perspection that you have of yourself, perception you have of yourself, like who you are in the world, who you are accepted as. You'll always have that running unless you come into that inner healing with your inner child.
That's so beautiful. There's this quote that I read that like completely shifted my kind of understanding of kind of like this blueprint and like our understanding why we have received the things that we have received and how we move through it. And it was talking about how our soul comes into this world with a predefined mission. And like our soul already has a mission. And so basis the mission that your soul has been prescribed, you are then given your parents. Like you choose your parents in a way because they are the ones who are going to condition you for you to move through this part of your life. And then the geographical location, everything that you kind of go through is everything that you have chosen as a soul, so that you can step into your highest power and then continue to serve out your mission. When I read that, I felt like it changed a lot of how I look at life and like the things that I have been through.
Absolutely. I especially now where I'm at, and then how I've watched my clients release and rewrite their own blueprints. I think it's so necessary. It is so necessary because, like I said earlier, like no mud, no lotus. Like we need the muck. We need the mud in order to fully unfold. We need that conditioning to remember that it's not us, that we are totally our own essence, our own being. Like who we are at our core is so unique and really needs to be brought online. Like we are not a product of our circumstances, right? And like I said, the story, and this is what I feel a lot of people get caught up in, is like the story of, yes, I was born into this family, immediate abandonment, lots and lots of abuse. I could have been a really crappy person, right? Like easily I could have fallen into that. But my soul didn't come here to do that, right? My soul came here to do something else. My soul has a mission. And I believe that mission is guiding women to alchemize these wounds into that embodied power because I lived it, right? And so I do believe that soul mission needs to be lived personally, individually, before you can actually bring it to the collective as medicine. I think you need to be your first client. And this definitely is what I see in those who expand into their soul-led legacy, is that their legacy truly is their life. Their legacy is their past. Their legacy is what they've moved through. And the medicine that they either found, created, cultivated within to push through, to, alchemize. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. I think that's where so much innovation comes in as well, because when you're in a situation where you don't have the support, you don't have the resources, it really kind of gives you like the coal needs the pressure to produce the diamond,
Yeah.
like it
Yeah.
really gives you those circumstances where if you are going to come out of it and you are going to blossom and shine like on the other side of it, you need to have that pressure. It needs to be a pressure cooker to actually create create that diamond that comes out. So I love that quote, and I see it time and time again in my clients, and I
Yeah.
completely feel it in myself.
Same here. I feel like it has been one of the most instrumental things for me being able to transmute my pain into my power and recognizing what is the mission, what is the story here and that I'm supposed to work on. And you said something very powerful that the first client and the most like the biggest client you would ever work on is yourself. And I feel like I completely agree with you because I feel like life is nothing but a journey of blowing your own mind. And the only work that we need to do is being is walking through that mud, becoming that lotus, becoming that diamond, and becoming a reflection of that so that we give other people permission that you too can do the same. And when I speak to you, when you share your story, I really see that in you. I just want to say that I recognize that and thank you so much for the work that you have been doing. It's very
Thank you.
powerful.
Thank you.
I want to dive in a little bit into, you mentioned or you talk a lot about the divine feminine and the divine masculine. Maybe just as a foundation, if you can tell us a little bit about when you say divine feminine and divine masculine, what does that mean?
Yeah, so these two energies live within every single one of us. They are not split or siloed into biology. They are two energies that are the double helix. They truly come together to bridge and build humanity. And the divine feminine is an energy that has been suppressed for a long time, and that energy is all about creation. That is the creatrix energy. Just think of the void and creating out of the void. And all of that energy has been, not all of it, but often in society has been really suppressed. We're in a society that's very fixated on the masculine energy. And I wouldn't even call it the divine masculine energy. It's kind of the radicalized masculine energy of forcing, pushing, power hungry, building kind of things, building from ego versus building from soul. And the divine feminine is rising. There is a big energetic awakening within men and women of the divine feminine, that connection to unseen and unsaid forces, that cohesiveness, that right relationship with beyond us and our human relationships. So with the trees, with Mama Earth, with the animals, like there is this ask of us right now to come back into alliance with the energies that are all around this planet. And the divine feminine is very much that energy that anchors in that energy. The divine masculine is so important though. There is so much importance to that protection, that structure, that steadiness, that scaffolding to our
Mm-hmm.
lives. And so, really, the divine feminine, divine masculine comes into my work with my clients when we're talking about expansion, because the expansion of actually being able to flourish in your gifts and flourish in the way that you're here to serve the humanity and the collective really requires a balance of both energies. It really requires the scaffolding and the surrender. So the scaffolding of the divine masculine and the surrender of the feminine. And that structure and that creation mix is how we are able to actually create soul-led legacy and serve those people. And this is actually a great segue into New Earth University, because I feel this is alive in the university, and this is why I took the leap and decided to participate, because I see both. I see the structure and the strategy, of course, which I appreciate, but my favorite part is the community is coming into that proximity with other soul-led leaders who are finding the balance between the divine feminine and the divine masculine. And this has been, it's such a different approach to business, being
Mm-hmm.
able to be in balance. And so many businesses are born and grow from that push and that force and the strategy. And you can tell because those businesses feel like they are void of soul. And
Absolutely.
so many New Earth leaders, that's what they're doing, is bringing the soul back into the business,
Uh-huh.
and you need both energies in order to do that.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm curious, since you've joined this university program and like really started to also, connect with the community and start sharing more of your story online, how has it been for your journey on the journey of sharing yourself online?
It's been incredible. I was very hesitant to share my story online, and there was a lot of fear of judgment. There was a lot of imposter syndrome. There was a lot of, just internal fear of being seen. And I believe being within the university, being around others who are sharing that they feel the same way, gave me so much internal validation and honestly relaxation, because I realized even people who have been doing this for years, including Thor, still gets nervous before he posts, still gets nervous sharing his heart with the world. And it was this kind of big aha moment that I don't have to wait for it to feel easy. I don't have to wait for, the fear to dissipate. That that fear energy can easily be distorted with growth edge energy, which is really how I've been able to kind of rewrite that narrative for myself. When I feel my heart beating, when I feel that energy of kind of being nervous to share myself, it's a growth edge. It's a growth edge. And either I want to walk forward toward that growth edge, or I want to play small. Well, I'm done playing small. I'm not here to play small. I know I'm not here to play small. And so bringing that question into my mind, or that option into my mind, either, walk forward and feel this and be on your growth edge, or retract and stay small. It's an obvious choice for me. And it makes it a lot easier to move forward.
How do you feel like being on this growth edge and putting yourself out there has really impacted your business and how you serve your clients and the coaching that you do?
So much. Like, so much. Yeah, we were kind of speaking about this last week about, sharing the numbers is a great thing. Like, I'll riddle off some of those numbers. My social media following has 10x'd since joining the university. My clients have 5x'd. I originally had planned this year to quit my 9 to 5 at the end of the year. I ended up putting in my resignation notice in June and having my
Wow,
last
let's
day
go.
in July. Yeah. So when it comes to the masculine side of it, the numbers like that, yes, there was so much momentum, so much acceleration in my path, really collapsing timelines by being part of the university. But my favorite part, and the part that I feel like has been so impactful for me, is being around people who speak my language. Like, being around people who actually see what I'm building, respect what I'm building, understand what I'm building. I'm not just another number, right? I'm not just another client in a program. I feel held, I feel seen, I feel supported by the university. And just like the way that you checked in with me the other day about my activation session, like, just that being top of mind for you to check in with me is like absolutely beautiful. And it makes me feel, yeah, it just makes me feel so connected to my soul family. Like, the people who really speak that soul language and hear me in a way that most people in my life and in my past have never heard me before. It's yeah, it lights something in your heart. It lights that passion that you're part of the change.
Yeah, absolutely. That is so beautiful. And yeah, I feel very honored to be a part of this university program also and being able to like host this podcast. And really share stories. And I feel like even with my journey, like I joined as a student a few months ago, and being able to kind of like transition into being a space holder and a coach inside the space, and also with the work that I do with with the Brother Collective. I also felt like it was a pretty alone journey. Some of the work that I do is, I create safe spaces for men to come together and reconnect with their sacred masculine, and really helping them connect both with their sacred feminine and their masculine. I believe that we have to integrate both energies to really live in alignment. And especially like growing up right now in India and living here, I feel like there's a lot of suppression And when I walked this journey, it was also so unheard of that I didn't really have um, a lot of support. You know, people. I. It's almost like it's very interesting. I want to share this, but it's like even when I would go to like let's say when I began this journey, when I first started the Brother Collective, and I would step out and go into let's say like a wedding or there was like a family function. Somebody's like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Hey, I do the Brother Collective. You know, I am a coach. I bring men together." And they're like, "Okay, but like, what do you do for money?" When when I began, because I was still not sure of this, because I knew that there was a inner voice telling me to do this, but like I didn't feel ready. There was a lot of shadows that I was moving through as well, because I haven't studied as a coach. I haven't studied psychology. You know, I haven't gotten those certifications. So like, it made me feel a little bit of an imposter. But I realized that one of the biggest things that changed it for me was like when I committed and I said, this is the work that I want to do. This is what I want to commit to. And when I had this internal conviction, I felt like it brought in that embodied sense of this mission that I'm on. And then now when anybody, if somebody does ask me the same question again, like, okay, but what do you do for money? I'm like, I mean, this is what I do for my soul. And I am honored to be able to hold space. Like for me, it is the greatest gift that I feel like I could receive, you know? Um, if somebody feels comfortable to come and share their story with me, and and this has happened so many times that I have men coming and talking to me and they just break down crying, and they're like randomly at a networking event, they're just like, I don't even know why I shared, but like I've just opened up, I'm really sorry. I'm like, please do not apologize for sharing your story with me. I'm honored being a part of the New Earth University. I also felt like I'm not alone. I got to meet you, and I feel like we've connected really beautifully. I've got to meet so many beautiful students, but like in their ways, they're beautiful leaders who are building such beautiful, practices and really empowering people and really transmuting their pain into power and building this new earth. And I'd love to know from your journey as well, like when you began this journey as a coach, when you made this transition, how did you kind of deal with perhaps feeling a little bit of an imposter, or really feeling that confidence that I can do this? I can hold space. I can be a healer. What is it for you?
It feels really natural. And that actually was what created kind of this imposter syndrome because I had this belief that it had to be hard, like that
Mm,
I had to work for it, you know?
yeah.
And if I wasn't putting in a lot of energy, then maybe I wasn't doing my best or I wasn't doing it right. And actually leading the women's circles, so that's I also do that in the New Earth Revolution community. Leading the women's circles has been a big confidence booster for me because the first one that I led, I kind of had these jitters right before I, hit start on the Zoom meeting, and then it was 2 hours of just pure bliss, and I didn't have to perform. I didn't have to do anything. I was just me. I was just holding space. I was just actively listening and not just listening to the words, but tracking the energy, tracking the emotion of these women who were sharing. And it felt so easy. I got off the call and was like, that's it. I think that's it. Like that's what we unlock by being in proximity with others who are doing the same thing as we realize, no, it's actually a natural gift. Like
Mm,
you're probably not going to think that your gift is your gift because it comes so naturally to you.
wow.
And you'll have those questions of like, yeah, but what do you do for money? Like, but but what do you do? Like, did you study it? Like, how hard did you work to become this thing? And that's what I'm realizing, especially with New Earth businesses and New Earth leaders, is that gift is so natural to us. It's within us. It's who we are. It's who we be. It's not what we do. And the money and the followers and the numbers, they're a byproduct of being in that coherence, of being in that inner alignment. And there's nothing, I agree with you, there is nothing more fulfilling to me than being a safe place. Like being that
Mm.
space, that sacred, safe space for women to put down their armor. Like that to me is just so it's my pleasure and my privilege to be that for others. Yeah. It's nothing that I went to school for. It's nothing that I, have to work really hard to do. But it's so rewarding.
That's so interesting that you say that, living in alignment with your mission is actually the most easiest thing you can do. And I actually had this conversation with somebody recently, and they're just like trying to find my purpose, and I don't know what to do. And it's so hard to put yourself out there and all of this. And then I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, in fact, I spent 27 years of my life going through the education system, trying to build a career, struggling if it even felt right, if it felt like it was something that I'm meant to do, consistently doubting myself. And literally took me 6 months of me just kind of diving into this. And I feel like it just came so naturally. Like when you just live in that alignment, it just becomes you. You don't have to try. You don't have to put on a mask. It is the most profound thing that you can do on your own journey, is to live in that alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And to undo the layers, unravel the layers of conditioning that tell you it can't be that easy.
Yeah.
That's the work, right? That's what you actually have to do, is unravel those pieces of you that say, no, you have to do more. You have to,
Yeah.
earn it. It's no, actually, you just need to be you.
Mm. And I think another reminder that I've had in my journey as well is that the moment you decide to dive in, chances are that more will be asked of you. If you really want to step in, like doing it is easy, but now it's become an extension of you, that more is going to be asked of you. Like there will be a responsibility that you carry, and it's a very beautiful responsibility. There will be a way that you need to show up, the work you need to do, and like being an embodiment of that as well, and living what you talk about. And I feel like that is what the new earth means to me. Is each one of us just living in our highest self and truly just, you know, being an embodiment of the world that we wish to see. And I'd love to know a little bit about you. Like when you think of the words new earth, what does that mean to you?
Symbiosis. I think the respect, the right relationship, it starts within. And once you have that coherence within, then you have that respect and right relation with everything around you. And I think right now we have a very um, kind of deceptive trauma response to our external world, where it hasn't really clicked for many in the collective that the internal is reflected externally. Like you need that internal coherence to have that external harmony. And our external situation in the collective right now shows us that we are at war internally with so many different parts of us,
Yeah.
and we're not respecting the different parts of us. We don't have that reverence for the different parts of us that are really here to all work together. And that uniqueness that I speak to, of being a unique seed of light, that's part of it, is realizing you don't judge a fish for how it climbs a tree. We're not meant to all do the same thing or have the same outlook or have the same tastes. Like we're not meant to all be the same. Like that would be a fleet of robots. That's not humans, right? And New Earth to me is coming into that reverence and that respect for our differences. And also actually opening our awareness to our similarities. That's something that I really appreciate about New Earth Revolution and the university, is being in these spaces with people all around the globe.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been so heart opening for me, because even though we come from different places, different families, different childhoods, different experiences, we all actually have more in common than we have dissimilar, right? Like
Yeah.
we actually have so much in common, but we tend to have this separation, this divisiveness, this filter in the collective that keeps us at like arm's length from each other, so we don't even have that respect where we can hear each other, where we can actually come into that receptiveness of our similarities. We tend to have that trauma response of black and white. Either you're on my team or you're not, and that's it. And New Earth to me is all shades of gray. Like we have the whole spectrum, right? And we
Yeah.
respect it and we have reverence for it, and we're able to be in that coherence, be in that symbiosis with one another in a way that respects ourselves first and foremost, respects our own alignment and our own mission, and then reflects externally in our harmony with nature, with each other, with, yeah, with our entire energetic essence.
Absolutely. For anybody listening into this podcast right now, and for anybody who is really stuck, feeling disconnected, feeling unsafe, in their body, or really looking to just transform their life, if you could share one piece of advice or wisdom with them, what would that be?
Choose yourself. I think that is that is the core. That is the first step, is choosing yourself. And if you're not quite sure what that means, choose yourself by sitting in silence. Like, actually listen to yourself, because you know, in your heart, you already know exactly what you need. You already know exactly what the next step is. And you need to turn down the volume on all the external in order to really hear yourself. And when you hear yourself, you can take that next step in choosing yourself and do that over and over and over again until you find a place that really feels like you. Until you start to find that place where you feel like you can either find safety within or find the resources and the support externally to help you create inner safety. But it all starts with choosing yourself.
So beautiful. Thank you so much for that reminder. I think this was a beautiful episode. Thank you so much for being on the show today, and really just sharing your journey and being willing and open to share all of it. Really diving deep and into your childhood, and the work that you do today, and how you are actively building the new earth. So it's been a pleasure to have you on the show. Yeah, I look forward to sharing your story with the world.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation. And yeah, if there's any interest in working with me, you can find me on Instagram. My Instagram handle is at i.m.chelseabrianna. And on there you can see my offerings as well. I have two main ones right now, which is private mentorship, which is a program called Unfold, and it's a 4-month journey to inner coherence. It's all personalized, so it really takes into account where you are now, where you have been, and where you want to go, so that we can utilize what I have created called the Are method, which is all about that awareness and that acceptance, and then releasing and rewriting the energy in order to expand. And this has been very profound. It's how I have expanded into the life that I live now, and it's how many of my clients have moved toward the legacy that really lands on their soul. And the other offering that I have is a membership, a monthly membership. And in there, we do EFT tapping monthly, and we really focus on the alignment. I feel like alignment, as I've said, is the first step, coming into alignment in your subtle energy bodies. And so the membership is all about that. And yeah, it's been a very exciting journey so far. And I just absolutely love being able to do this. I love being able to connect with other women who just they know that they're made for more. They know that the past has had a chokehold on their life, and they're ready to put that armor down and really tend to their inner world. So I'm here to help.
Thank you so much for being on the show today. I would love to. I feel like last thought that kind of feels present for me is, something that really shifted my journey was this quote that said, "What if the pain that has been given to you was there for a reason, so you can help alleviate or lift off the pain of others walking with that same pain and that journey." And in so many ways, the pain that we have is actually our power. And Chelsea, listen to your story today. I can really see, how deeply you have worked to bring, turn your darkness into your light, and to be a living embodiment of the new earth that we all wish to see. So thank you so much for being here, for being present, for the work that you do. And it has been truly an honor. And thank you so much. Yes.